and start. Thank you all for joining. This is lesson 20. We have done this 20 times, guys. So yay for us for consistency. So we're on lesson 20 of A Course in Miracles. It is lesson 20 talks about I am determined to see. And as we know, Jesus talks a lot about sight, because sight, perception is reality. And so I'm just going to read one short paragraph in here. It says, your decision to see is all that vision requires. What you want is yours. Do not mistake the little effort that is asked of you for an indication that our goal is of little effort. Can the salvation of the world be a trivial purpose? And can the world be saved if you are not? God has one son and daughter, and he or she is the resurrection and the life. And your determination to see is vision given you. So we talked about sight. And as we continue to do the lessons of A Course in Miracles, not only does our sight in terms of how we view ourselves and others change, but our actual sight changes as well. And we've talked about that, where you're able to perceive those that are beyond the five senses. So I'm excited about that lesson. I am determined to see. So let's start. Tonight, we are going to be referencing two books. Of course, A Course in Miracles and Conversations with God, book 1. Tonight's theme is teach only love, for that is what you are. And we're going to start on page 91 of A Course in Miracles. Okay, this chapter, y'all, this chapter, the lessons of love and the message of the crucifixion is incredible. There is so much information in this chapter. So I encourage everyone to go back and read this chapter because I cannot begin to do it justice. Of course, I can't, read it the whole thing, but Jesus talks about the crucifixion of being an extreme example. So let me read page 91, paragraph 1. It says, the relationship of anger to attack is obvious, but the relationship of anger to fear is not always so apparent. Anger always, hold on, wait a minute. I think I'm in the wrong paragraph. Okay. Let's go. Under the message of the crucifixion, it says, for learning purposes, let us consider the crucifixion again. I did not dwell on it because of the fearful connotations you may associate with it. The only emphasis laid upon it so far has been that it was not a form of punishment. Nothing, however, can be explained in negative terms only. There is a positive interpretation of the crucifixion that is wholly devoid of fear and therefore wholly benign in what it teaches if it is properly understood. So Jesus continues and he says, the crucifixion is nothing more than an extreme example. Its value, like the value of any teaching device, lies solely in the kind of learning it facilitates. It can be and has been misunderstood. And this is very important because next week we're going to layer this with additional information. We're going to really delve into the crucifixion and the whole purpose of it. And after Jesus's death, what the stories people told behind that. So I'm going to be referring to this lesson So Jesus says, I have already told you that you can always call on me to share my decision and thus make it stronger. I have also told you that the crucifixion was the last useless journey the sonship need take, and that it represents release from fear to anyone who understands it. So, so Jesus is basically, he's going into the real meaning. Let me see. So he says this, for you, you have probably reacted for years as if you were being crucified. This is a marked tendency of the separated who always refuse to consider what they have done to themselves. Projection means anger. Anger fosters assault, and assault promotes fear. The real meaning of the crucifixion lies in the apparent intensity of the assault of some of the sons of God upon another. This is, of course, impossible and must be fully understood as impossible. Otherwise, I cannot serve as a model for learning. So what is Jesus saying? Jesus is saying that this was an extreme example to show that people can harm the body, but that anger is not justified. So on page 91, he is saying, he says, and I'm at the top of page 91, he says, anger always involves projection of separation, which must ultimately be accepted as one's own responsibility rather than being blamed on others. Anger cannot occur unless you believe that you have been attacked, that your attack is justified in return, and that you are in no way responsible for it. Given these three wholly irrational premises, the equally irrational conclusion that a brother is worthy of attack rather than love must follow. What can be expected from insane premises except an insane conclusion? The way to undo an insane conclusion is to consider the sanity of the premise on which it rests. You cannot be attacked. Attack has no justification, and you are responsible for what you believe. So, so Jesus is saying that it's irrational to think that you are capable of being attacked. Of course, Jesus's body was attacked, but Jesus is taking us back to the premise of A Course in Miracles, that everything that matters cannot be destroyed. And so Jesus says that you are not justified in attacking others. And he's giving us this example where he did not attack back when people attacked his body, because Jesus knew that he was higher than his body. So Jesus further explains this on page 92, paragraph 2. He talks about, and that's where he talks about that the crucifixion is nothing more than extreme example. He actually allowed himself to go through this process as a learning device for us to never justify attack on others, even if we feel that they have attacked us. And on paragraph 4, it says assault can ultimately be made only on the body. There is little doubt that one body can assault another and can even destroy it. Yet if destruction itself is impossible, anything that is destructible cannot be real. Its destruction, therefore, does not justify anger. To the extent to which you believe that it does, you are accepting false premises and teaching them to others. The message the crucifixion was intended to teach was that it is not necessary to perceive any form of assault and persecution, because you cannot be persecuted. If you respond with anger, you must be equating yourself with the destructible and are therefore regarding yourself insanely. So this is a powerful message because it shows Jesus is like, I gave you the example that we are not our bodies. He is taking back, again, he's taking back the premise that anything of the entire book of A Course in Miracles, to say that anything, that nothing real can really be threatened, right? Our souls cannot be damaged. It is only the body, and that we're not our bodies. Jesus, in fact, was able to very easily, as we know, manufacture a new body. We're going to go deeper in this truth next week. There's so much more information that Jesus has disclosed to us about the crucifixion. So Jesus is saying that the message of the crucifixion was intended to teach that it is not necessary to perceive any form of assault as a reason to attack. He further explains this on page 93, paragraph 9. Let me read that, paragraph 9. He says, I elected for your sake and mine to demonstrate that the most outrageous assault, as judged by the ego, does not matter. As the world judges these things, but not as God knows them. I was betrayed, abandoned, beaten, torn, and finally killed. It was clear that this was only because of the projection of others onto me, basically them telling him, you're evil, you're saying you're God, you're this, you're that. Since I had not harmed anyone and had healed many. So he's saying it's obvious, that this was in a projection of ego onto him that people held against him because he had not harmed anybody, right? He only healed others. So he's saying only as the ego sees it and not God, that he was betrayed, abandoned, beaten. Jesus didn't see it like this. And he knew that this was going to happen. And he did not see himself as a victim. And he knew that he was not his body. So on page 94, paragraph 11, he says, so I'm reading paragraph 11, sentence 5. I'm starting out at, he says, my one lesson, which I must teach as I learned it, is that no persecution that is out of accord with the judgment of the Holy Spirit can be justified. I undertook to show this was true in an extreme case, merely because it would serve as a good teaching aid to those whose temptation to give into anger and assault would not be so extreme. I will with God that none of his sons and daughters should suffer. The crucifixion cannot be shared because it is the symbol of projection. But the resurrection is the symbol of sharing because the reawakening of every son and daughter of God is necessary to enable the sonship to know its wholeness. Only this is knowledge. And he says the message of the crucifixion is perfectly clear. Teach only love, for that is what you are. He goes on to say, if you interpret the crucifixion in any other way, you are using it as a weapon for assault rather than as the call for peace for which it was intended. Check this out, y'all. This goes deep. So it says, I'm reading paragraph 14, sentence 2. On page 94, it says, the apostles often misunderstood it, and for the same reason that anyone else misunderstands it. Their own imperfect love made them vulnerable to projection. And out of their own fear, they spoke of the wrath of God, he put that in quotes, as his retaliatory weapon, nor could they speak of the crucifixion entirely without anger, because their sense of guilt had made them angry. So what is Jesus talking about with this? So in paragraph 15, he says, these are some of the examples of upside down thinking in the New Testament, although its gospel is really only the message of love. If the apostles had not felt guilty, they never could have quoted me as saying, I come not to bring peace, but a sword. This is clearly the opposite of everything I taught, nor could they have described my reactions to Judas as they did. If they had really understood me, I could not have said, betrayest thou the Son of Man with a kiss? Unless I believed in betrayal. The whole message of the crucifixion was simply that I did not. The punishment, he put in quotes, I was said to have called forth upon Judas was a similar mistake. Judas was my brother and a son of God, as much a part of the sonship as myself. Was it likely that I would condemn him when I was ready to demonstrate that condemnation is impossible? So y'all, okay, what is he saying? So Jesus is saying that the disciples' perception of the crucifixion impacted their accounts of it in the Bible. He's saying that their own guilt colored how things went down. And they quoted Jesus as saying things that Jesus was like, I didn't say that. So I thought that was crazy. I thought that was incredible, to really understand why some of the things have been said in the Bible, why they're worded the way they are. So it just shows you that, these disciples were human. They had egos as well. Jesus also provides us other examples of how the ego gives a certain interpretation in the Bible. And I'll briefly talk about those other things, because once I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's like if I was attacked and Khadijah was there, right? And I said, this is how it's supposed to go. Khadijah might perceive that in a completely different way. She said, no, you weren't supposed to do that. That was wrong, because she loved me, or she may have felt like, oh my God, what can I do? We all have fear and we all have ego. And I think this is important to open up to the possibility that some of the things in the Bible, really everything in the Bible, has a certain layer of interpretation on it. And I just find it profound that Jesus was telling us that. So I'm going to reference a couple more references on page 87, paragraphs 4 through 9. And that sounds like a lot, but it's not. So I'm only going to reference 5, 7, and 9. So Jesus says, there are many examples of how the ego's interpretations are misleading, but a few will suffice to show how the Holy Spirit can reinterpret them in his own right. So sentence 6 on page 87 says, as ye sow, shall ye reap. He interprets to mean that you consider that what you consider worth cultivating, you will cultivate in yourself. Your judgment of what is worthy makes it worthy for you. But when we read, as ye sow, so shall ye reap, that sounds like to us, like if you mean to somebody, you do bad, you going to hell. You know, you do wrong, so you will reap what you sow. So that's kind of like some of the ways that we have interpreted this. And in sentence 7, it says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. That's easily reinterpreted if you remember that ideas increase only by being shared. The statement emphasizes that vengeance cannot be shared. Give it, therefore, to the Holy Spirit, who will undo it in you, because it does not belong in your mind, which is part of God. So he's saying, of course, when we hear vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, that sounds like God is like, no, you know, I will take care of the evil. I will destroy the evil. But Jesus is actually saying, no, the Holy Spirit reinterprets that as to mean that give your sense of revenge up to the Holy Spirit, who will undo it in you, because it does not belong in the mind. So give it to God. So these were just a couple of examples. And please feel free, that's on page 87. Again, I thought that was profound, for Jesus to tell us, and to get this directly from Jesus is incredible to me. To tell us that, you know, some of the stuff has been layered, and things that we interpreted may not be what it was originally meant. So now Jesus has provided us, because I feel like, you know, we now understand that Jesus has gone through this incredible experience, right? We all are familiar with the crucifixion. We all know how brutal it was, of course, how we view it when we look at the movies or even read about it in the Bible, how incredible it was. And Jesus has given us this incredible example of love in the highest degree by saying, see, we are not our bodies. I was able to manufacture another body 3 days later. We are higher than our bodies. The only thing that people can destroy is your body. That's it, right? However, let us not forget, though, that the ultimate demonstration of love is self-love, and that we should never allow, accept, and enable abuse in the name of love. So though Jesus gave us this example that anger should not be returned, we do not want you to misunderstand it to say that anybody can abuse your body without some kind of reaction, response. So we should never allow and accept abuse. I am going to go to one of my favorite books, Conversations with God. And please pay particular attention to this, because this is a prerequisite of what I'm going to be discussing a couple of weeks from now. I'm going to be doing a couple of lessons on relationships. And I'm not going to reread this, because this is a part of chapter 8 that talks about relationships, but it was very timely to talk about tonight, so that we can understand that it is important to have self-love, that we do not allow and enable abuse. So I'm going to start on page 130. And so Neil is talking to God, and he says, what would love do now? And God says, no other question is relevant. No other question is meaningful. No other question has any importance to your soul. Now we come upon a very delicate point of interpretation for this principle of love-sponsored action. Has been widely misunderstood And it is this misunderstanding which has led to the resentments and angers of life, which in turn have caused so many to stray from the path. For centuries, you have been taught that love-sponsored action arises out of the choice to be, do, and have whatever produces the highest good for another. He says you've been taught this, to do the highest good for another. He said, yet I tell you this, the highest choice is that which produces the highest good for you. As with all profound spiritual truth, this statement opens itself to immediate and misinterpretation. The mystery clears a bit the moment one decides what is the highest good one could do for oneself. And when the absolute highest choice is made, the mystery dissolves, the circle completes itself, and the highest good for you becomes the highest good for another. So he's saying by choosing the highest good for you becomes the highest good for another. He says it may take lifetimes to understand this and even more lifetimes to implement. For this truth revolves around an even greater one. What you do for yourself, you do for another. What you do for another, you do for the self. This is because you and the other are one. And this is because there is no one other than you. So he's saying, he continues, he says, it is important in relationships to remember this truth, for without it, relationships would be very difficult. Let's go back to the practical application of this wisdom and step away from the purely spiritual, esoteric aspect of it for now. So God says, so often under the old understandings, people well-meaning and well-intentioned and many very religious did what they thought would be best for the other person in their relationships. Sadly, all this produced in many cases, in most cases, was continued abuse by the other, continued mistreatment, continued dysfunction in the relationships. Ultimately, the person trying to do what is right by the other, to be quick to forgive, to show compassion, to continually look past certain problems and behaviors, they become resentful, angry, and mistrusting even of God. For how can a just God demand such unending suffering, joylessness, and sacrifice, even in the name of love? And so God says the answer is God does not. God asks only that you include yourself among those you love. God goes further and he says, God suggests, recommends that you put yourself first. I do this knowing full well that some of you will call this blasphemy and therefore not my word, and that others of you would do what might be even worse, accept it as my word and misinterpret or distort it to suit your own purposes, to justify ungodly acts. I tell you this, putting yourself first in the highest sense never leads to an act of God. He says, as a practice, never leads to an ungodly act. As a practical matter, again, leaving esoterics aside, if you look to what is best for you in these situations where you are being abused, at the very least, what you will do is stop the abuse. And that will be good for both you and your abuser. For even an abuser is abused when his abuse is allowed to continue. So I'm going to pause right there because we have to make sure we heard what God says. God says, even an abuser is abused when his or her abuse is allowed to continue. Does anyone have any theories of what that means? Why is even an abuser abuse if we allow it to happen?
Hey, Loretta, can you hear me?
Yeah, my girl Roxanne. Yes.
Yeah, so I had to hear that. I had to keep repeating that several times to really understand what was being said. But I feel like a part of it may have to do with the fact that the person is abusing and they're allowed to do that doesn't really give them an opportunity to realize like that what they're doing is wrong. So they continue that pattern as if it's like normal, and they themselves would never heal because it's normalized almost, if that makes sense.
Girl, this is the sharing group, right? I love it. Yes, that's exactly it. That, you know what? When I read this, I was exiting a very emotionally crazy marriage. And God, this sentence, it gave me life. Because I think many times when we are in a situation, especially if we grew up religious, we think, let me forgive, let me, look past this, let me go higher, let me this, let me that. And that's why, guys, I love this book, y'all. Everybody should own this book. First, The Course in Miracles and Conversations with God. But God is like, no, that is not the highest sense of love. Even just like Roxanne said, pretty much, he or she will not have, if somebody is an abuser, they will never have an opportunity to learn, evolve, expand, grow in any kind of way. It's never being checked. They never know how self-love looks. They don't know how boundaries feel. There is a gift in someone saying, no, you may not. There is a gift in that. And so, Jesus is painstakingly saying, that's not what I'm wanting you guys to do. That is not holy. That is not godly. So I'm going to continue. Thank you, Roxanne. So he is saying, this is not healing to the abuser, but damaging. For if the abuser finds that his abuse is acceptable, what has he learned? Yet if the abuser finds that his abuse will be accepted no more, what has he been allowed to discover? Therefore, treating others with love does not necessarily mean allowing others to do as they wish. Parents learn this early with children. Adults are not so quick to learn it with other adults, nor nation with nation. Yet despots are cruel leader. A cruel leader is a despot, somebody who just treats their people cruelly. He said, yes, yet despots cannot be allowed to flourish, but must be stopped in their despotism. Love of self and love of the despot demands it. Like loving yourself and the person who's cruel demands that they be stopped. He says, this is the answer to your question. If love is all there is, how can man ever justify war? Sometimes man must, check this out, y'all. I love this book. Sometimes man must go to war to make the grandest statement about who man truly is. He who abhors war. There are times when you may have to give up who you are in order to be who you are. There are times you may have to give up who you are in order to be who you are. There are times when you might have to resist something so strongly and passionately that the abuser has to say, whoa, she ain't playing. You know, you see yourself as a benevolent being, but sometimes you just got to go down in the gutter just like everybody else, because it's like, no, I want to be who I am, and you're in my way. You're not allowing me to be the peace and the love that I am. So this is deep, y'all. I love this. So he says there are masters who have taught you cannot have it all until you are willing to give it all up. Thus, in order to have yourself as a man, in order to have yourself as a man of peace, you may have to give up the idea of yourself as a man who never goes to war. History has called upon men for such decisions. The same is true in the most individual and the most personal relationships. Life may more than once call upon you to prove who you are by demonstrating an aspect of who you are not. This is not so difficult to understand if you have lived a few years, though for the idealistically young, it may seem the ultimate contradiction. In more mature retrospection, it seems more divine dichotomy. This does not mean in human relationships that if you're being hurt, you have to hurt back, nor does it mean so in relationships between nations. It simply means that to allow another to continually inflict damage may not be the most loving thing to do for yourself or the other. This should put to rest some pacifist theories that highest love requires no forceful response to what you consider evil. And we are allowed to consider things evil, right? This is a world of absolutes, of relativity. And I'm almost done. So he says, by that which you call evil, do you define yourself? And by that which you call good. The biggest evil would therefore be to declare nothing evil at all. Do y'all get that? So he's saying the biggest evil would be to say, oh, there is no evil. Really? You exist in this life in the world of the relative, where one thing can exist only insofar as it relates to another. This is at one and the same time both the function and the purpose of relationship, to provide a field of experience within which you find yourself, define yourself, and if you choose, constantly recreate who you are. Choosing to be godlike does not mean you choose to be a martyr. And it certainly does not mean you choose to be a victim. Choosing to, it says, on your way to mastery, when all possibility of hurt, damage, and loss is eliminated, it would be well to recognize hurt, damage, and loss as part of your experience and decide who you are in relationship to that. Yes, the things that others think, say, or do will sometimes hurt you until they do not anymore. What you would get from here to there most quickly is total honesty, being willing to assert and acknowledge and declare exactly how you feel about a thing. Say your truth kindly, but fully and completely. Live your truth gently, but totally and consistently. Change your truth easily and quickly when your experience brings you new clarity. No one in right mind, least of all God, will tell you when you are hurt in a relationship to stand aside from it, cause it to mean nothing. If you are now hurting, it is too late to cause it to mean nothing. Your task now is to decide what it does mean and to demonstrate that. For in so doing, you choose and become who you seek to be. So then Neil says, so I don't have to be the long-suffering wife or the belittled husband or the victim of my relationships in order to render them holy or to make me pleasing in the eyes of God. And God says, good grief, of course not. And Neil says, and I don't have to put up with attacks on my dignity, assaults on my pride, damage to my psyche, and wounds to my heart in order to say that I gave it my best in a relationship, did my duty, or met my obligation in the eyes of God and man. And God says, not for 1 minute. So this, y'all, I know I'm on level 10 right now. This is so powerful. And this is important because I know there are men, and mainly women, in and out of church who are in mental and physically abusive marriages and relationships, who have often gone to the church for help. And some churches, not all, some churches tell the women to pray for their husbands, pray that they will get better. And they send the woman right back into the abusive situation with no intervention whatsoever. God talks about this when he says that well-meaning and very religious people consistently do what they think is best for the other person while neglecting their own needs and rights to be loved. He says that the person who often looks to meet the other person's need at their own expense end up bitter and angry with God because of the cruelty that they have endured for all those years, when God has nothing to do with what they endured. Moreover, on page 132, God says that he, in fact, recommends that you put yourself first. And it is rarely encouraged for people to put themselves first, especially women who have been conditioned to be the ultimate person in the family unit, to put everyone else's needs before hers. This is not self-love, and it's discouraged by God. People get uncomfortable when they hear this because we're deeply conditioned to think that a good wife and a good mother will always put her family first. Of course, we all take care of our family, but that should never be at the expense of your own health, safety, and well-being. It is important for us all, men and women, sons and daughters, to remember that we must respect and honor ourselves. Love of self is the ultimate demonstration of love. And in fact, the only way we're able to love others is by first loving ourselves. Jesus always says that being spiritual does not mean being a doormat. Jesus was not this pious man that they portray him to be. Remember, Jesus overthrew the tables in God's temple. So this is consistent with what Jesus says as well. He gave us this beautiful example that we're higher than our bodies, but we also have to remember to love ourselves. So does anybody have any comments? Anything to offer?
Yes, I have a comment. So
Okay.
I've told you this before. I don't know if you remember, but chapter 8 in CWG book 1 is my favorite chapter. It's on relationships.
Yes.
And like for me, it really was life-changing when I was kind of, taking in the book for the first time. And I got to that part of the book, where you just talked about, where if you allow the abuser to abuse, then you too are abusing the abuser, right? Because you're not bringing them to the light.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, like that whole concept wasn't foreign to me for people that I wasn't close to, but for my very close friends, people that I trusted and loved, my family, it's difficult to go to them, right? And say things and have these tough conversations about, whatever it is, boundaries or just issues that you're having. So just having this, studying the book at that time, it really allowed me to get through tough relationships with girlfriends, best friends, family. So I live by that even to this day. So it's really, really helpful to kind of digest that and then figure out, what that means for you and whomever it is that you feel like you may need to, to bring to a better place. So yes, this is like my favorite.
Yeah.
It's like it's taking me back like years.
Yeah.
First, like
Yes.
so. Yeah.
Yes. I remember us talking about that part. Like, wow,
Girl.
almost like God giving you permission. No, love yourself. Set your boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
gives me like,
I'm sorry. No, there's been times where it's worked out for me great, right? Talk to the person. And to this day, like everything is like amazing. There's been other situations where with the same concept, it didn't work out so well, like not speaking anymore. And that's fine because it's okay. So for me, doing this is not easy, right? But like you said, you have to do something that you're not to be who you are. And so for me, it's risky because I've experienced the good result and I've experienced, the not so good result. So that's all I had on that. But
yeah, and I like how he said it gives you an opportunity to create that which you are in connection to that. So I used to say, okay, who am I in the situation of abusive husband? Who am I? How do I demonstrate myself as God in this situation? Who am I in the situation of abusive boss? How do I demonstrate myself as God in this situation? And it does give you opportunity. And you're right, Khadidra, it is those closer relationships, because people who you're not close to, you can very easily, set boundaries. But to communicate that with family,
a parent, a best friend, a cousin. Should I continue?
Okay.
Yeah. So it's I love that chapter.
I do too.
So I always got my 2 cents, right?
Yeah, come on, Roxanne.
So this whole discussion just really like poured something into my soul, because I feel like at the basis of everything, and you've been saying this repeatedly, like it's about self-love, right? It's about knowing your worth and knowing what you do and don't deserve and putting those boundaries up for like whomever is not willing or capable of treating you the way in which you deserve to be treated, right? Ultimately, I think that's the basis of it. And I agree with you, like for some of us who were raised in the church, like myself, we're kind of taught to always like stick it through and pray about it. And, and I'm not saying those are not good things too, but at the same time, it can't just be one person, right? If there's 2 people in a relationship. So unless both parties are willing to change in order to best suit the interests of each other, like it's never gonna work. But again, at the end of the day, it's for you to look yourself in the mirror every day and come to terms with your realities, who you are, and put yourself on a pedestal and realize what you deserve. And I'm done.
I have something to add too.
Okay, come on, Takia. I love it.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, Roxanne. Okay.
Just to piggyback off of what Khadidra said and also what Roxy said about the part where, Khadidra said, she experienced the good parts of it and then also the not so good parts. I feel like the not so good parts is the challenge in unlearning what we've grown to know. So it's hard and it feels, it's hurtful, especially if you have to let somebody go or not speak to anybody anymore. But that's the challenge of growing into your higher self, I guess. So it's not really a bad thing. It's a bad thing for them that they're not learning as well, but that's for them to catch up with when it's time for them to learn it.
And I love that. You're right, Takia. And there is a treasure at the end of that. Self-love. This is our theme. This is our theme, y'all, this month. Self-love is critical. I've even told someone in this group, just go based on your feelings, even if you find, like, especially as women, if somebody invites you to go to lunch, give yourself a minute to say, is this something I want to do? I think we automatically, yes, and then later on say, dang, I really ain't trying to be around this person right now. But you said yes so quick that you can't go back and say no. It would be more awkward if you said no. But just to give yourself a minute. It could be anything. It could be going to lunch. It could be a favor somebody asks. It could be if they want to borrow money, just to check in with your heart, check in with yourself, and give yourself permission to say, is this something I want to do? Is this something I feel like doing? You know, the answer doesn't have to be no. It could be later. It could be, you know, next week, you know, but for us to not overextend ourselves too quickly. Again, that's another demonstration of self-love, you know, in every way, where we determine, how do I feel about this? Checking in with that heart chakra, checking in with that space in your chest. Even after you interact with somebody and you feel weird, you don't know why, like, oh, I don't know why every time I talk to this person, I have to talk myself back. Okay, what's going on? What is it? And honoring yourself enough to delve into that. Don't just push it away. Are they slighting you some kind of way? Are they doing digs? Are they peppering the conversation with little insults? Listening to that, honoring yourself to recognize when you don't feel good. Remember, our feelings is an indication of our internal guidance system. That is how our higher selves speak to us. It's through your feelings. So even if you have a relationship, and it could be a friend like Khadija, talked about that, every time you interacted with them, it often feels weird, or you leave in a low vibration, then delving into that a little bit more. When did I feel that? When she said this or when she said that? And recognizing your boundaries, is just another way to honor yourself. It's another way to honor yourself. So I love this. I love this. Anybody else have anything to offer? Okay, so just unmute if you do. So we're gonna real quick go into the meditation. We haven't, every now and then, at least once every 2 weeks, I like for us to invite God's light into our chakras. So I think it's time for us to do that again. And I know a lot of people start with the root chakra, but I always love to start with the crown chakra. So if we could close our eyes and sit comfortably. And we're going to start with the 3 deep breaths, giving our brains a cue that we are going to go into our meditation. And when we breathe, I learned a few things this week. When you breathe, I want you to try to specifically inhale from your diaphragm. So allowing your posture to sit up straight so that you can inhale from that lower diaphragm. So we're going to breathe in 3 times, breathing in through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. And with every exhale, as always, we're sinking deeper and deeper into our chairs, into our couches, wherever you are. Breathing in again through the nose from that diaphragm and exhaling out of the mouth. Relaxing your shoulders with every exhale, relaxing all your muscles in your body, and inhaling again and exhaling all that does not serve you. And now we're breathing in a comfortable rhythm. Still paying attention to that breath. Anytime your thoughts start to interrupt, just take your focus back to your breath. As your diaphragm goes in with every inhale and out with every exhale. And now we are going to focus on our crown chakra, which is on the top of the head. And we're going to imagine this beautiful, warm stream of white light coming in from heaven, going straight into our crown chakras in the top of our head. And as this light streams in, allowing it to light all the corners of our mind, allowing it to shed light and love on all of our shadows, allowing it to stream into our bloodstream, into the cells of our body. As those cells take that information to the other parts of our body, because God's light is healing, incredibly healing light. And so as we allow this beautiful warm light to stream in through the top of our heads and fill up that crown chakra and clear it out, we can appreciate that the crown chakra represents your spiritual connection to yourself, others, and the universe. This crown chakra plays a huge role in your life's purpose. And through this crown chakra is our connection with God. We all walk around with a direct light that goes straight from heaven right into our bodies. And everywhere we go, this light continues to stay with us. There's no way you could ever be apart from source light. So as this beautiful light streams down, you can feel it coming down. As it comes down to your forehead, you can feel it clearing out the third eye chakra. The third eye chakra is located between your eyes. and you get your intuition and your ability to have spiritual sight and clarity from our third eye chakra. It is also linked to our imagination. So we may feel tingling in the third eye, in between our eyes. You may feel light energy in that area as you invite God's light to clear out that chakra. But it's healing light that is streaming down and lighting up that area. And now we continue to feel this beautiful light extend. It has not left the crown chakra. It has not left the third eye. It's extending. Extend down the face, down the jaws, down the bridge of your nose, down. Everything that it touches, it heals. Everything that it touches relaxes. Down the chin, down to the throat chakra. And of course, the throat chakra gives us the ability to communicate our inner universe outward, to communicate our boundaries, to teach others, to allow others into our universe, to voice those feelings and those thoughts and ideas. So as this light streams down your throat chakra, you create your boundaries. You demonstrate that self-love by expressing yourself. And now this light extends down further. You can feel it on your shoulders. Allow your shoulders to relax as this light streams down your shoulders. We carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, allowing that light to stream down the elbows, down to the wrists, down to the tips of our fingers. And now this light is streaming to the heart chakra. The heart chakra is located in the center of your chest. And of course, this is the ability to show love and compassion to others. Many of us have been hurt throughout our lives. And so we invite this God light to flow into our heart and heal that area. We want to keep our heart space open. We do not want to block ourselves off from love from others and block off our ability to give love to others. Keeping that heart chakra wide open, trusting in God, trusting in the universe as we feel this powerful light sitting in our heart chakra. Now we're allowing that light to stream down further to the solar plexus. It's located in your stomach area at the top of your abdomen. This area is responsible for confidence and self-esteem, as well as helping you feel in control of your life. And this is the area when you are upset or angry, you feel it in this solar plexus area. And also the sacral chakra. So we're allowing that light to fill that chakra right there as we maintain control of our lives and stay in touch with our confidence and self-esteem, knowing and understanding our self-worth. As the light flows down the abdomen is a very important area. We go down to the sacral chakra, which is located just below the belly button. And this chakra is responsible for your sexual and creative energies. It is also linked to how you relate your emotions as well as the emotions of others. So allowing that light to clear out that chakra, allowing that light to sit in that area and clear out all the mud and the murk that has built up in that area so that we can express ourselves in a healthy way and relate our emotions in an effective way. We can keep that creativity open. Focusing on that chakra allows us to pursue those things creatively and allowing ourselves space to do those things. So now this light flows down further, finally, down to the root chakra, which is located at the base of your spine. It provides you with a base or foundation for life, and it helps you feel grounded and able to withstand challenges. Your root chakra is responsible for your sense of security and stability. You belong here. Do not apologize for being who you are. You belong here. You're secure. You are loved. You are nurtured by Gaia, by Mother Earth. So allowing God's light to clear out that chakra, to clear it out so that you can build a sense of security for yourself. And now we're allowing this beautiful light to flow down our hips, down the thighs, relaxing those thighs. Flow down to the knees and the calves, down to your ankles. You can feel this beautiful warm light. And finally down to the bottoms of our feet, to the tips of our toes. And now I would like for everyone, you have roots, you have tentacles, you are connected with Gaia. I would like for you to imagine as if you were a tree. Imagine that your roots are flowing through into this planet. If you have your feet on the floor, to flow through that floor, to flow through the concrete, to flow through the brick, to flow through the mud, to flow through the clay. You're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the planet. Go through it, flow through the outer layers of the planet, through that into the inner layer, until you get to the very core of Mother Earth, and you connect with her energy. You connect with her beautiful green light. And now this green light flows back up through your feet, back up through your legs and your thighs and your hips. And as it connects with those upper chakras, it becomes connected with the white light. So now you have green, this beautiful green light, and then you have this beautiful white light, and they are joining. And it creates this beautiful bubble of secure light around you. This bubble where you are protected. This is your energy. What you are experiencing is your aura, your energy. And so this bubble is impenetrable. And those of us who are empaths, as you pick up on other people's emotions, you're shielding yourself in this way that your emotions are yours. And so in the fact that we have dug our roots into the planet, we have grounded ourselves, and now we have created this shield and we have shielded ourselves. It's very important to do this every day. It doesn't have to take a long time. It could be 2 minutes, but just every day, ground and shield yourself. Leaving a little bit of opening in the top of your head and the crown chakra to allow that God light to continue to stream in. So as we begin to acclimate ourselves back, as we begin to slowly open our eyes, we are reminded that we could do this as often as we would like, to ground and shield ourselves. So I hope everybody enjoyed. Hey, Kevin.